What if everything we believe about money, stability, control, even success is just a story we all agreed to tell? A story so powerful, it built cities, markets, and empires. And yet, it still decides whether we sleep peacefully at night. We chase it, we fear it, we call it freedom, but sometimes it feels more like faith. As Burton Malkiel reveals in A Random Walk Down Wall Street, the world of investing isn't ruled by logic or luck, it's ruled by us. Our emotions, our illusions, our desperate need to make sense of uncertainty. This isn't a guide to getting rich. It's a mirror showing why we think the way we do about wealth and what it truly costs to believe in it. So, take a breath. Let's walk through the audiobook summary that built our money and the truths that might finally set us free. Chapter 1. The Tree of Knowledge. Somewhere between curiosity and chaos, humanity found its greatest power: imagination. Not muscles, not claws, not speed, just stories. The kind that live in our heads but change everything around us. Think about it. Tigers are stronger. Elephants are bigger. But none of them convinced millions of strangers to believe in invisible things like nations, gods, or eventually money. That's the trick of the human mind. We don't just live in the world, we live in the stories we agree to tell, and that agreement built everything you see around you. But it started small, around campfires, with whispers about spirits, the moon, and the meaning of thunder. Those tiny stories did something no other species could do. They made us cooperate. Believe together. Dream together. The tree of knowledge, that old metaphor from Genesis, isn't really about sin. It's about awakening. The moment humans started questioning what is and imagining what could be, and that curiosity came with a cost. Because the more we imagined, the more we worried. The more we dreamed, the more we doubted. Awareness is a gift, but it's heavy. You can see it even now. Every innovation starts with that same spark, someone daring to believe in something that doesn't exist yet. And every market, every investment, every currency is still built on that same invisible trust. When you buy a stock, you're not buying something real, you're buying belief. Belief that this company, this brand, this idea will mean something tomorrow. That's the same force that once made ancient humans believe the river had a spirit or the king had divine blood. The story changed, but the pattern didn't. We think we've evolved past myths, but we just trade one kind for another. The myth of endless growth, the myth of security, the myth that money itself is real. Truth is, money isn't metal or paper, it's faith. A shared dream printed in numbers. And the market? That's just the collective heartbeat of human imagination trying to price the future. You can almost hear it, hope and fear, fighting in real time. Every chart, every spike, every crash, it's emotion wearing a suit. And maybe that's why we're drawn to finance stories. Because deep down, they're not about numbers. They're about us, our hopes, our greed, our illusions, our need to believe. But here's the catch. The same imagination that built civilizations also builds bubbles. Every boom starts as a beautiful idea until it becomes a collective fantasy. The tree that gave us knowledge also gave us temptation, to chase certainty where there is none, to pretend control in a world run by chance. Still, that's what makes us human. We keep imagining. We keep building stories. And maybe that's not weakness, maybe that's courage. Because to believe, in spite of uncertainty, that's the most human thing there is. So next time you look at a stock chart or read an economic headline, remember you're not watching data. You're watching faith take shape. And maybe, just maybe, that's what keeps the world moving. Not logic, not luck, but belief shared, fragile, and endlessly powerful. Chapter 2. A day in the life of Adam and Eve. Imagine waking up before money existed. No alarms, no emails, just wind brushing through trees and the quiet hum of survival. That was Adam and Eve's world, not the fairy tale version, but the real one. Two early humans, naked under the same sky we see today, trying to make sense of life with nothing but instinct and curiosity. No rent, no stock market, no retirement plan. Just hunger, fear, and love, raw and unfiltered. They didn't own anything. There were no wallets, no passwords, no portfolios. Everything belonged to everyone, and yet nothing really did. It's strange, isn't it? We spend our lives chasing stability, but they had it without even knowing what it meant. Every sunrise was a new economy, run by nature. Your worth wasn't measured in digits, it was in how long you could keep your fire alive. But even then, something inside us was restless. That little spark, the need to make sense of it all, to predict tomorrow, to control what can't be controlled. Maybe that's where investing began, not in Wall Street, but in the wild. When Eve saved berries for later, or Adam sharpened a tool he didn't need yet. That was the first portfolio. Time, energy, and hope. They were already hedging against uncertainty. The difference? Their market was nature itself. Every decision came with risk. A wrong turn meant hunger. A bad season meant death. They didn't have financial advisors, they had instinct, and fear, and each other. You see, that's the origin of human finance, not numbers, but survival. The same emotions that drive investors today, greed, fear, patience, trust, were all there under that ancient Sunday. It's funny. We act like the modern economy is this complex scientific thing, but the emotional engine behind it hasn't changed in 100,000 years. You make a trade because you hope. You hesitate because you fear. You hold on because you believe. That's prehistoric behavior wearing a business suit. And maybe that's what Adam and Eve teach us. That money didn't make us emotional. Emotion made money possible. Because what is wealth? Really, it's just a story about safety. The idea that if we stack enough numbers, we'll never have to face the wilderness again. But life doesn't work that way. No matter how advanced we get, the same primal rhythm follows us. Hunt, gather, rest, repeat, gain, lose, hope, rebuild. Adam and Eve lived with uncertainty because they had no other choice. We live with it because we keep pretending we can outsmart it. Maybe progress isn't about eliminating fear. It's about learning to live with it gracefully, like they did, under open skies, with nothing to their name except awareness and each other. Because even in a world without money, they were already rich. They had time, curiosity, and the freedom to simply exist. And if you strip away the noise, the screens, the salaries, the graphs, maybe that's still the purest form of wealth there is. Chapter 3. History's biggest fraud. Progress always comes with a beautiful lie. And one of the greatest lies we ever told ourselves was farming would set us free. It didn't. It trapped us. Before agriculture, life was unpredictable, yes, but it was light. We hunted, gathered, moved with the seasons. Food was scarce, but freedom was abundant. Then came the great promise. Settle down, grow crops, build security. Security. That word sounded holy. It still does. But when the first seeds went into the ground, something else got buried: human freedom. Because farming wasn't just about food. It was about control. You had to stay in one place, guard your fields, count your grains, work through exhaustion just to survive another day. And that's when humanity's first debt began, not to banks, but to the earth itself. We traded wandering for walls, spontaneity for schedules, adventure for anxiety. They said we conquered nature, but the truth is, nature conquered us with a smile. We became servants to the soil, enslaved by our own invention. And if you listen closely, that echo still hums through every paycheck, every deadline, every morning alarm. The same old whisper: work harder, produce more, stay safe. It's wild the very system designed to give us stability ended up feeding our fear. Because once you have something to lose, you start living to protect it. You can see the pattern everywhere. We build more, we own more, and somehow we feel less free. It's the same agricultural story, just modernized. Instead of wheat, it's wealth. Instead of barns, it's bank accounts. Instead of neighbors watching your field, it's investors watching your portfolio. We call it progress, but emotionally, it's déjà vu. Our ancestors worked the land from sunrise to sunset. We work screens. We call it productivity, but the exhaustion feels eerily familiar. Burton Malkiel doesn't call this out with anger, he does it with irony. Because the rational investor, the modern planner, is still chasing that same illusion. The perfect harvest, the guaranteed yield. And the irony? Even after 10,000 years, the markets still remind us that nothing is guaranteed. Droughts come only now. They're economic. But maybe that's what makes humanity beautiful, our refusal to give up on the dream. We keep believing in progress, even when it betrays us. Because to hope to invest, to plant, to plan, is to admit we're fragile, but brave enough to try again. Still, we should remember what our ancestors forgot. The price of control is often our peace. There's a reason people chase minimalism today. Why digital nomads wander again, it's not rebellion. It's remembering. We're trying to unlearn the addiction to permanence, to own less and feel more alive. Maybe that's the real harvest, not abundance, but awareness. Because progress isn't always forward. Sometimes, wisdom means walking back to where freedom still grows wild. Chapter 4. Building Pyramids. Power never starts with force, it starts with belief. Thousands of years ago, men didn't build pyramids because they had to. They built them because they believed they should. Imagine that for a second. Hundreds of thousands of people working under the burning sun, stacking stone after stone for a god they'd never met. No paycheck, no personal gain, just faith organized and weaponized. That's how hierarchies were born. Not from violence, but from stories that made obedience feel sacred. The idea was simple. If people share a myth, they'll share a mission. And if they share a mission, they'll work even against their own comfort for something bigger. Sound familiar? Every system since then has followed that same playbook, from empires to economies. Replace gods with logos, pharaohs with CEOs, temples with office towers, and you've got the modern version of the pyramid. We still climb it, every day. But here's the catch. The pyramid gives order, not freedom. The higher you climb, the narrower it gets. The base supports the top, the many working for the few. And everyone tells themselves the same comforting story. One day, that'll be me up there. That's how myths survive. Not because they're true, but because they're useful. You see it in money, in career ladders, in success stories. Each one whispers, if you work hard enough, the system will reward you. And maybe it will, for a few. But the rest? They just keep the structure standing. It's not cynical, it's just human nature. We crave order more than fairness, stability more than equality. That's how civilizations survive and how individuals quietly break. But don't get it twisted, pyramids weren't built by fools. They were built by dreamers, people who needed meaning more than comfort. And maybe that's the most haunting part. Because even today, we do the same. We trade hours for validation, time for titles, joy for just one more promotion. All for the story that says, you matter if you climb. The truth? You mattered before you started climbing. But that's hard to believe when the whole world worships the peak. What Burton Malkiel subtly reminds us through these ancient metaphors is this: economies, like pyramids, are built on trust and structure. Necessary, yes, but dangerous when mistaken for truth. The stock market, corporate ladders, social media fame, they all rely on collective agreement, a shared illusion that some positions mean more than others. But look closer, and you'll see the same pattern repeating for millennia, the many building the dreams of the few. And maybe that's okay if we do it consciously, if we know we're part of a design, not slaves to it. Because real power isn't in reaching the top of the pyramid, it's in realizing you can step out of it entirely and build something flat, free, and fair. A new kind of structure, one made not of stone, but of understanding. That's the real revolution. Quiet, unseen, but already beginning. Chapter 5. There is no justice in history. We love to believe the world is fair, that hard work gets rewarded, that good people win, that the scales of life somehow balance themselves out. But history laughs at that idea. It's uncomfortable to admit, yet every empire, every dynasty, every booming market was built on imbalance. Someone always pays the hidden cost of someone else's success. When we say civilization, what we really mean is hierarchy-polished inequality dressed as progress. Ancient kings claimed divine favor. Modern billionaires claim innovation. Different language, same outcome. The truth is, fairness has never been the engine of history. Power has. Power decides what's fair, who gets heard, who gets left behind. And the irony? Power itself is rarely earned purely by merit. It's often just luck, timing, or birth disguised as destiny. You can see it in markets too. We pretend they're meritocracies, that the smartest investors win. That logic rules. But markets have moods. They reward confidence, not always competence. Charisma sometimes outperforms truth. It's not evil. It's just human. We want to believe in order, in cause and effect, that if we follow the rules, we'll be safe. But history isn't a moral teacher. It's just a mirror, showing us what humans do when given leverage. That's why financial justice will always be an illusion. The system may evolve, but it never escapes emotion. Fear and greed are its oldest currencies. And yet, there's something strangely liberating about accepting that. Because once you stop expecting fairness, you start focusing on wisdom, on making choices not because they guarantee reward, but because they align with who you are. That's the quiet power of awareness. You stop fighting the tide and start learning how to swim with it without losing your soul in the current. The peasants who built palaces, the workers who fueled revolutions, the investors who lost everything in bubbles, they all believed they were playing a fair game. But the truth was, the rules kept shifting. And maybe that's the most honest lesson Burton Malkiel offers between the lines. The market doesn't care about justice. It only cares about behavior. Those who stay patient while others panic, those who build quietly while others chase noise, they survive. Not because life suddenly became fair, but because they stopped expecting it to be. So maybe the real definition of intelligence, financial or otherwise, is emotional maturity, the ability to move through unfairness without bitterness. Because, let's face it, history won't apologize. It never has. But it leaves clues, patterns of human emotion that repeat like old songs in new languages. The powerful will always write the headlines. The rest of us, we write the lessons. And maybe that's where meaning hides, not in the illusion of fairness, but in how we respond when it disappears. Because the world may not be just, but we can still choose to be. And that choice, quiet as it seems, might be the only real justice we ever get. Chapter 6. The Scent of Money. If you close your eyes and think about money, what do you see? Paper, coins, numbers glowing on a screen? None of it's real. It's all scent, a trace of belief we carry everywhere we go. Because money isn't a thing, it's a story. A story we all decided to believe in at the same time. That's what makes it powerful. And dangerous. Once upon a time, trade was simple. You had grain, I had fish, we swapped. Then someone clever said, what if we trade using something that smells like trust? Gold, silver, shells, paper, it didn't matter. The material was never the point. The point was faith. Money is the only fiction every human believes in across cultures, languages, and centuries. You can't get 5 people to agree on religion or politics, but hand them a $100 bill and suddenly they all nod. That's the quiet magic of collective imagination. Burton Malkiel calls it shared trust, but it's deeper than that. It's emotional glue, the scent that makes strangers cooperate and sometimes compete. Because once we invented money, we didn't just trade goods, we traded meaning. We started measuring worth, not in kindness, not in courage, but in currency. And that changed everything. People used to live for survival. Then they started living for more savings, more status, more safety. But more has no finish line. That's the cruel poetry of it. Money promised freedom, but it also built new cages. We started judging ourselves by digits we couldn't even touch, comparing numbers that never stop moving. You earn, you spend, you save, you stress, and through it all, money stays invisible. You can't see it, but you can smell it everywhere in ambition, in envy, in fear. There's something almost primal about it, like a scent that triggers emotion before thought. When the market drops, you don't just lose money, you lose certainty. When it rises, you don't just gain wealth, you gain validation. That's why Malkiel's idea of the random walk hits so hard. Because deep down, we want money to feel logical, predictable, like a game with rules. But it isn't. It's human emotion dressed up in mathematics. Every chart tells a story. Every trade carries a heartbeat. And maybe the real lesson isn't to escape that, but to understand it. To realize that the smell of money isn't good or bad. It's just potent. It reveals who we are when no one's watching. Because money doesn't change people, it amplifies them. The generous become kinder. The fearful become cautious. The greedy become louder. So maybe the goal isn't to chase wealth, but to master our reaction to it. To hold money loosely before it starts holding us. The scent will always linger. It's part of being human. But if you breathe deeper, past the smell of fear and status and scarcity, there's another fragrance hiding underneath. Peace. And that not the paper, not the price, is what real wealth smells like. Chapter 7. The Discovery of Ignorance. Every generation believes it's smarter than the last until history quietly proves otherwise. There was a time when humans thought they knew everything that mattered. The sun rose for them. The stars existed for them. The gods spoke to them. Certainty was comforting and dangerous. Then, something remarkable happened. Someone said 3 words that changed the course of civilization. I don't know. That was the moment the modern mind was born. The moment we replaced superstition with curiosity. The discovery of ignorance, the most humbling and liberating idea in human history. Because to admit you don't know is to open the door to everything you could learn. Before that, knowledge was inherited. Priests, kings, elders, they told you how the world worked, and you nodded. But once people began questioning the unquestionable, the real compounding started not of money, but of understanding. That mindset uncertainty embraced, not feared, eventually built science, capitalism, and modern investing itself. Burton Malkiel reminds us that the stock market, like science, is a place of infinite unknowns. It humbles anyone who enters believing they can outsmart randomness. The smartest investors aren't the ones who think they know, they're the ones who know they don't. That's the paradox of wisdom. The deeper you see, the more you realize how little you control. Ignorance is terrifying. It feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. But it's also where real growth begins, because curiosity only lives where certainty dies. Think about how markets move. Every price is a whisper of collective uncertainty, thousands of minds trying to predict what none of them can truly see. And yet, we keep playing the game, not because we know the outcome, but because we believe the exploration itself has value. That's the same spirit that sent explorers across oceans, scientists into laboratories, and everyday people into investments, chasing something invisible but deeply human: progress. The moment we stopped pretending to have all the answers, we started creating better questions. That's how the world leapt from astrology to astronomy, from alchemy to chemistry, from guessing to understanding. And that's why the best investors act less like prophets and more like learners. They don't try to predict the market, they study it, adapt to it, respect it. They know that the map is never the territory. In life too, the people who grow are the ones who keep their minds porous, who say, maybe I'm wrong. There's something profoundly peaceful about that humility. It frees you from the obsession with being right and replaces it with the joy of becoming wiser. Ignorance isn't a flaw, it's fuel, the most honest source of motivation there is. Because once you accept you don't know, you stop trying to control and start trying to understand. And that, quietly, is where all revolutions begin. Not with confidence, with curiosity, the kind that whispers, what if we're wrong? And then builds a better world by finding out. Chapter 8. The Marriage of Science and Empire. Power used to come from swords and gods. Then, one day, it started coming from maps. Not the kind pinned to classroom walls, but the kind drawn by explorers who looked at the edge of the known world and said, "Let's go further." That's when science and empire met and fell in love. A dangerous, intoxicating kind of love. You see, exploration was never just about curiosity. It was about control. Every discovery had a shadow. Every telescope pointed at the stars, also pointed back at profit. When sailors crossed oceans, they weren't just chasing adventure. They were chasing ownership of land, of resources, of knowledge itself. Science became the tool. Empire became the motive. Together, they changed the shape of the world, literally. But here's the twist. It wasn't greed alone that drove them. It was belief, the same belief that fuels modern markets. The conviction that growth is always good, that progress is a moral duty, that exploration equals evolution. That idea didn't die with colonies. It simply put on a suit. Today, we don't sail ships, we launch startups. We don't conquer continents, we disrupt industries. But the rhythm is the same. Explore, exploit, expand. Burton Malkiel hints at this connection quietly, almost mischievously. Because the modern investor isn't that different from the ancient explorer. Both are driven by risk, curiosity, and a strange kind of faith that tomorrow will reward today's courage. Science gave us data. Empire gave us ambition. The combination built capitalism, a system that thrives on discovery but often forgets reflection. We still celebrate explorers, but rarely the mapmakers who warned of storms. We idolize inventors, but forget to ask at what cost. Every breakthrough comes with collateral damage. The Industrial Revolution brought progress and pollution. The digital revolution brought connection and distraction. That's the paradox of advancement. Every time we discover a new horizon, we lose sight of an old one. But maybe that's not failure. Maybe it's the price of learning. Because discovery isn't clean. It's messy, emotional, human. The same curiosity that lands a spacecraft on Mars also builds financial bubbles on Earth. It's the same emotional DNA wonder mixed with ambition, humility tangled with hubris. Empires fell, markets crash. Yet the spirit that built both never dies. It just reinvents itself. And maybe that's what Malkiel wants us to see. Progress isn't a straight line, it's a cycle of curiosity and correction, of pushing too far, then learning where the edge really is. That's the real marriage, not between science and empire, but between human imagination and human limitation. We discover, we dominate, we stumble, we start over. And in that loop, we find the pattern of everything from economies to empires to our own lives. Because deep down, every explorer, whether on a ship, in a lab, or in the market, is searching for the same thing. Not gold, not glory. Understanding. The kind that reminds us that power without perspective is just another storm waiting to happen. Chapter 9. The Capitalist Creed. Once upon a time, people prayed to gods. Now, they pray to growth. It's the quiet religion of our age. Invisible, logical, and endlessly persuasive. If the numbers rise, life is good. If they fall, panic. That's the capitalist creed. Not written in scripture, but in spreadsheets. Not preached in temples, but in boardrooms and stock tickers glowing at midnight. The faith is simple. Tomorrow must always be bigger than today. Economies must expand. Markets must climb. Productivity must grow. Anything else feels like sin. But somewhere along the way, belief turned into obsession. Growth stopped being a means to happiness. It became happiness itself. We started measuring progress in percentages instead of peace, success in output instead of meaning. And without realizing it, we turned the economy into our new mythology, complete with its own saints, entrepreneurs, prophets, economists, and demons. Recession. It's not evil, it's just human. We need stories to make sense of chaos. And capitalism, like every great myth, offers one we can all believe. If you work hard, the world will reward you. But reality? It's more complicated. For every soaring graph, there's quiet exhaustion behind it. For every success story, there are thousands of invisible hands holding it up. Capitalism gave us innovation, medicine, technology, miracles our ancestors would have called magic. But it also gave us anxiety, the feeling that no matter how much we have, it's never enough. Burton Malkiel understood that tension. He saw markets not just as mechanisms of profit, but as mirrors of psychology. Fear and greed, hope and despair, they pulse through every trade like human emotion disguised as data. And here's the paradox. Capitalism thrives on emotion, but demands we act rationally. It tells us to stay calm while lighting the world on fire. Investors are told to trust the process, stay diversified, think long-term. But beneath the advice is the same ancient whisper that built empires. Believe, because without belief, the entire system collapses. Money loses meaning, trust evaporates. The market isn't powered by algorithms, it's powered by faith. The faith that someone, somewhere, will value your dream more than you did yesterday. It's beautiful. It's fragile. It's absurd. We've built the most sophisticated system in human history, yet it runs on the same emotional fuel as our ancestors' rituals. Collective imagination. But maybe that's not a flaw. Maybe that's the point. Because capitalism, at its best, isn't about greed, it's about creation. It rewards vision, courage, and the human need to build something that lasts. At its worst, it forgets what it's for. It replaces purpose with endless pursuit. So the question isn't whether capitalism works. It clearly does. The question is whether we still remember why we built it. Was it to grow endlessly or to live meaningfully? Because when growth becomes a religion, even paradise feels like pressure. Maybe the next evolution isn't rejecting capitalism, it's humanizing it. Remembering that behind every number is a heartbeat, behind every gain, a story, and behind every market, a mirror reflecting not the world we live in, but the one we believe in. Chapter 10. The End of Homo sapiens. It's strange we've spent thousands of years trying to control the world. Now, we're starting to control ourselves. Once, we tamed fire. Then, we tamed nature. And now, we're trying to tame evolution itself. Think about it for the first time in history. Humans aren't waiting for nature to decide what comes next. We're editing genes, building machines that can think, creating algorithms that can predict what we'll do before we do it. Burton Malkiel ends his journey here at the edge of what it means to be human. Because if money once connected us through shared imagination, technology is beginning to rewrite that imagination entirely. The same forces that built the market curiosity, innovation, risk, are now steering humanity into a world where biology and code start to blur. We're no longer investing in companies. We're investing in futures where humans might not be the center anymore. It's both thrilling and terrifying, because the more powerful our creations become, the smaller we feel. The algorithms we built to serve us now outsmart us. The data we trade for convenience starts predicting our desires. And the markets once driven by human emotion are now being run by machines that don't feel at all. For the first time, we're not just participants in evolution, we're the authors of it, and no one knows how the story ends. The irony? We built this future chasing comfort, efficiency, speed. The same instincts that made us plant seeds and build cities are now coding our replacements. But maybe that's not the end of humanity. Maybe it's the next chapter of it. Because evolution was never about survival of the strongest, it was about adaptability, about changing when change becomes uncomfortable. And maybe this is our next adaptation, learning how to coexist with what we've created, learning that intelligence without empathy is just electricity. Money once unified us through shared belief. Technology might do the same if we remember the one thing machines can't replicate: purpose. You can teach an algorithm to trade, but not to dream. You can program a model to predict risk, but not to feel love, or loss, or awe. Those emotions, the ones that make investing irrational and life meaningful, are what keep us human. Maybe the end of Homo sapiens isn't extinction. Maybe it's evolution into something wiser, a species that finally realizes growth isn't the goal. Awareness is. Because in the end, the market will keep walking randomly, endlessly, Technology will keep evolving. Systems will rise and fall like civilizations before them. But meaning, that's still ours to make. So if this really is the next frontier, if we're standing on the edge of the post-human age, then maybe the question isn't what's next. Maybe it's simpler. Who do we become when everything we built starts thinking for itself? And perhaps the answer, the only one worth chasing, is this. Stay human. Not perfect. Not optimized. Just deeply, beautifully human. Because that, not money, not machines, has always been our greatest investment. So, what do you think happens next? Do we evolve past ourselves or finally learn who we are? Share your thoughts below. Maybe your perspective is the one someone else needs to hear. If this summary through a random walk down Wall Street made you pause, breathe, or think, give it a quiet like. And if you believe that learning about money is really learning about being human, stay close. Subscribe to Bookzeal. Because this isn't just about finance. It's about finding freedom in a world that keeps changing faster than we do.